Hello and welcome back to another Six Sages Gaming Duel Series. Today we have a match for you between a Final Fantasy VII based control deck and the Ice discard list featuring Leon that topped in California. The Ice list can be found on Mognet, and the Final Fantasy VII list will try to get up on either Facebook or Twitter, probably both. We'll have it up in a couple days. It's Justin's list, so we'll grab that for you. We will say that the Ice discard deck really punishes the more mid-range and control type of decks. So before this match even gets started, it is certainly favored in the Ice players' direction. So here we're going to be starting with a couple of backup Seraphie loop. So discard Seraphie for Seraphie, get Seraphie back, get to play two backups on the first turn, and is certainly not a bad way to start against most decks with two backups and one forward. Seraphie is really in the deck to be able to get back Vincent or Clouds or a number of other effects when we really need them. Now here our opponent gets to live the dream with the Argoth into Leon since we only had one card left, and then he has a 9k body that we have to worry about. So here we're going to search up a Tifa with the hopes of, if he has another discard, he has it. And we really just can't play around that. The best thing that you can do against the Ice deck is accelerate your backup plans. You're always playing your most valuable cards while being able to keep one or two extra cards in hand. And at least by starting with these three backups, that's what we were trying to do. In this instance, we're grabbing the Tifa so we can make sure his Leon can't block, and then we can just keep swinging with the 9k relevant body. So he plays the 2-drop Bard here, which can pay 1 and make us discard a card. So again, really all in on the discard plan, which, as you'll see throughout the course of this video, does a wonderful job at disrupting your opponent's plays. I really do think that the Ice deck is probably just one or two more cards away from what I would take to say I'd feel positive playing in a high competitive event, but right now, splashing two colors is just so good that it's very hard to make the case for a mono Ice deck. The best thing about it is that it is streamlined in the sense that it's all Ice. It's very easy to plan out your turns and make the best sequence play possible turn after turn. So consistency is all what it's about in this Ice deck. Playing the Duke back up, making Leon a 10k, and now making our Tifa simply look silly. So at least this way we can start getting in some points of damage, but we have to worry about getting raced on the way back since they are up a point now. Getting in for 2 points of damage. Seeing that Sephiroth off the top certainly feels great as well. And here we play the Cloud, just a great 8k Brave attacker, and it's shouldn't be missed that Brave is still one of the best keywords in the game, so I really am looking forward to Opus 3 and seeing if we get a few more cards with Brave. So it looks like he has Laguna in hand, so if he really wanted to, he could just slam the Laguna, get in 2 points of damage, and that's exactly what it looks like he's going to be doing. Attacking with Arga first, and then hitting with Leon. In this way, if he plays a Squall or something of that nature, it'll make your opponent discard 2 cards rather, and then they'll both be 10Ks because of the plus 1000 power backup. This, he decides to leave Leon on defense, because Tifa can make one of them not block, but in this case, you're just going to make sure that Leon can't block anyways, but your Seraphie still can't get through for a point of damage, and Laguna currently is a 8k, which is something to worry about. So really only Tifa is able to attack here for any kind of value. If we wanted to, we could have Red Mage and got through for all the points of damage, but instead we're going to try to play the Omni Slash to play around him getting a Squall. And then Moonblood really not doing anything there because he can hit Seraphie, but he didn't have anything else in his hand to follow up with it, so he wasn't going to be able to finish it off. Again, Moonblood is really in the deck just to combo with Sid or one of the other ping-based effects it could have. So it looks like Mateus. Yeah, it has a very high cost of hand, so at this point he didn't get his backups out early as he needed to. This really just goes to show you how important it is to play those early backups, and you can really just out-card advantage your opponent over the course of the game when you can start with 2 backups and a forward. So it looks like we're going to see a Zidane here to draw a card. Has the Mateus at least. But lucky for us, we still have the other Tifa in hand for her S effect, which means all 3 drops or less can't block, which he's already at 5 damage, so even if he has a Mateus, he is going to lose unless he hits something else off the top. So he has a Mateus, and then we're just going to attack for the last 2 points of damage. Has to hit a Laguna there. There's no Shiva in the deck, and then the last point just gets through for victory. Now we're going to be starting off game 2, a set of mulligans, drawing back up to 5. So again, that's a little bit atypical of how this matchup should go. Again, you saw that he tried to live the dream with the Leon play. Ultimately didn't work out for him because we were able to have 3 backups on turn 2. We just were able to grind out the matchup in our favor. And, admittedly, we top deck a little bit better as well. So starting off with a Bard on the Ice player's side. Again, great for that mid to late game discard when you really want to try to sequence that Leon play. And here we're going to try to start with a forward in play. Our hand's a little bit rough in terms of having that Delita and an Emperor Zond in hand. So we're kind of stuck in what we can play. Although in this deck, the Emperor is a pretty much auto toss target unless we already have an established backup. So that's why I think he played 2 of in the list, if I'm not mistaken. Squall coming down, great on, again, great to be comboed with Moomba if you're not going against a water-based deck. And just a card that really puts us in an interesting position where we don't want to just ram our Vincent into this card now because he can just ping and kill it. And we had to spend more resources to make that happen. So if we had a Belias, we could threaten that and see if he were to block. But ultimately just probably going to be playing some forwards here and try to out-pressure the Squall. Moomba actually not that bad of a draw here. It's certainly one of the cards you want to see with Squall, and he has the other Squall in the hand to activate the special to give him first strike as well. So we're going to pay 1, get the Duke into play, making that Squall now a 7k. I'm probably just going to hold on to the rest of them. So here we draw our second Bahamut, and pretty much in every fire deck right now you want to be running 3 Bahamut just to make sure you can draw them when you need to draw them over the course of the game, but it feels really bad when you see 2 of them early and you just know that, well, if I throw this away, there's a very good chance I'm not going to see the 3rd one over the course of the game. So here he has a few options. He could just, block and trade with this with the Vincent, and then leave us with the 9k body. So here he Moomba's Zon down to 1,000. He's going to block with Squall and try to ping and kill the Emperor. He makes a huge misplay here though, because it's only a 7k, where Vincent is still an 8k, so it's not going to work out how he wanted to. So in this case, we just get to, Emperor is going to die, kill his Squall, and then we still have Vincent in play and our opponent has no hand. So it's certainly wasn't a good time for him. Of course, obviously, huge misplay. It's going to happen. And wow, just drawing 2 back up here is the worst feeling. I think at this point you just play the Jill. Oh, never mind, it was Argoth. I think at this point you just play the Jill, save your point of self-damage, and build up some more resources. I thought that was another Duke. So here we attack with Vincent. So again, only relevant 4 that we have currently. So hopefully we're going to be able to use that to get in a few solid points of damage against his not so valuable 3k forward. Here we choose not to use the effect because he would just get a better card back more often than what we had to be able to get back out of our break zone. Rosso here making an appearance. Rosso is really just in the deck as a great blocker. The half the damage effect of it is certainly relevant and can make attacking for your opponent difficult, especially in the situation where he has a bunch of 3Ks or 7Ks that really aren't that valuable for him outside of their discard effect. So Rosso does a great job at least stalling and buying a couple turns for us. So here he plays Sarah, makes us discard another card. So we discard the Shantoto, because we want to keep the Raban in our hand so we can potentially trade with whatever his, or at least with one of his guys, I should say, in general. The downside here is that we drew the other one, and we already have a Delita in the break zone, and the deck only plays 2 Delitas, so the second Raban, chances are, is just not being played. So here we use Vincent, attack, or rather use for the fight effect, and then get in 2 points of damage. Hitting Jill at a very key moment for him to freeze both of our forwards. So get a point of damage in, hit our Tifa. Again, we only have 1 card in hand, so it's really a struggle. Really gonna be tough for us to be able to top deck something, because we really just need to start hitting forwards at this point. So he plays a Devout, tries to get something, or hopefully going to get something back of value from his break zone. And it looks like he has a sit in hand, so if he draws a Moomba, it would be in a really good spot for him. And here you can see that we just ripped 2 Jessies, so we're drawing very poorly in terms of the backups that we want to be getting. And here I try to decide what we're getting. There's a point here to get Vincent's, or a Vincent, so we can death penalty. Argoth is only a 2-drop. So, and we know he has a lot of 3-drops, so in a perfect world, I'd be able to kill not only Argoth, but 2 other 3-drops, which, again, is where his deck is mostly focused on. But that gives our opponent the understanding that he knows we have it, and if he has a Sephiroth or just double discard effects in a turn, it's going to be very difficult to hold on to that card. Ultimately, we decided to go with that gamble instead of, say, playing a Cloud on that turn, just because we want to try to hopefully survive this turn, and then have enough cards in our hand on the following turns to threaten our opponent and say, hey, we have this Vincent, you know I have it, and you can't possibly play enough discard effects in 1 turn, and hopefully there just win the game out, riding Vincent to victory. So we're taking another point of damage here, hitting Atama, nothing that we certainly wanted to see. We have had more than enough backups at this point. So it looks like he's just trying to figure out how he's going to produce crystal points where he wants to play. Maybe he's changing his mind. Looks like he's trying to play the Vincent this turn, or the Sephiroth to get the Vincent out of our hand, which certainly is what I would be doing if we know our opponent has it and they only have a few cards in hand. It looks like at this point he's just trying to figure out if he can play a card and play Sephiroth, so he gets to play out his hand and make his opponent discard his. So it looks like at this point he's just going to play the Sephiroth for 2. He's going to discard 2 cards as well, probably giving himself a Devout target. The thing to know here is now Sephiroth is an 8,000 body with First Strike, so it's very difficult for us to get past this card. We have Red Advantage on the table, but we have all Earth backup, so that doesn't even do it for us, and we're just getting stonewalled by the backups that we have. So here we're just going to play another Monk in the hopes that we're going to be able to activate Monk, hopefully draw into another Vincent if we're really lucky, give Vincent Brave, and then use Death Penalty in the same turn. So here our opponent's going through his break zone, determining, hey, I have this Devout that I can just use, it's just sitting on the table. He's holding that Mateus in hand, so he does have the ability to just, attack free with Sephiroth, understanding that he's winning the damage race and he's not all that scared about it, and then use the Mateus against our Vincent when we try to attack with it, thinking now that the coast is clear. And again, in mono ice, you're probably fine running Mateus. However, once you expand out to 2 or even 3 elements, it's a card that gets cut very, very quickly. And Yuri's asking how many cards we have left in hand. Drops a Renoa, which again is a very, very difficult card for this deck to interact with when you're already at 3, 4, 5 points of damage. And at this point, it looks like we drew a Cloud, and that's about our best thing that we have going on for us, unfortunately. The good thing to note is that it will only cost 4 because we have 2 Final Fantasy VII characters, and it does buff us above the 9k, or rather 8k range of Sephiroth, and it allows us to be aggressive again. Now here I make a huge misplay, and I don't know why on earth I did this, but don't ever do this. He has Renoa. Obviously, he can just block if that's what he's going to do anyway, so giving Brave to Vincent is irrelevant. So, again, huge mistake by me. And I should have just saved the backup. And it's a pretty rough spot to be in. Here we have a note. He's going to play the Mateus, and that's when it should have went into the break zone. We catch it in game 3, but we realized that it says put, not break, so we make that mistake in this game. But again, at this point, without having Shantoto, and I think this is, we've already discarded 1, there's not really a good spot for me to be able to come back in this game. So he's just going to block with Renoa, Dollar Guys, and get back on with it. So again, at this point, we have a 9k body now, and we hopefully have the ability to start being aggressive, but ultimately we really just get outdrawn here, and he's going to have the vein to lock down Cloud and push us to 6 damage. So at this point, puts us to 6. We hit an EX burst, which is always great to get a card. We can get a Tifa. It's going to produce fire crystal points for us, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not really doing anything for us. We're at 6 points of damage. One of our best blockers is currently locked down in terms of just a power-to-power ratio, and our opponent has an 8k and a 9k of his own. And there we draw another Tifa, so there is room here for us to, play a Tifa in Water Kick. But Water Kick is really only removing his board that we don't really care about, so it's not producing a lot of value for us. We just discard Rosso since it's not doing anything for us. We get to play the Tifa. Again, the note here is that thanks to the starter cloud, while it is locked down, it does give your attacking forwards plus 1000 power, which really just helps us when our opponent has a plus 1000 power backup in play, and we don't. So that can help push through when we are in the lead, but again, right now, we're not at all in a position to be in this game where we're certainly in control by any means. We need a Shantoto, an Omni Slash, or some Hazard here even would be fine, but we are slowly getting pushed out of this game. So it looks like he has another Vein, which is solid if he could activate the S effect if our guys were dulled, and he has the ability to make us discard another card. So here there is going to be a little bit of miscommunication, because I say before he goes to combat, I'm going to Water Kick his best forward. Obviously the target here is Vein, because it's a 9k, where Sephiroth has first strike, but it rounds down, so at least we can block with Rosso favorably. This is another one of those situations where we really wish we hit the Bahamut, because that is one of our other outs, but again, we saw both of them early, and there we draw our third Raban and a card that we just can't play. So as everyone knows by now, if you're watching this, Final Fantasy is a very tempo-driven game where chances are if it gets to this mid-late game that we're currently in, and you just brick on a turn of draws, which admittedly doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it feels terrible, that this draw caused me to lose the game. You know, we had a little bit, we've done as much as we can to get to this point where we're not dead yet, but ultimately we don't have much that's going to save us, and we drew absolutely nothing. So at this point, I would just take the point of damage. He's not really that worried about it. He's only at 3. And if your opponent's attacking, maybe you hit like a Laguna, dull one of their guys, maybe you hit another Mateus. Really only use Mateus if it's going to save you from losing the game or something of that nature. So here, again, with the boss top decks, we hit Laguna, which is just going to be able to dull out Tifa and let him swing in for the game. So he chooses to dull Raso instead. Ultimately just needed to dull one of them. I mean, he could party attack and get in the last point of damage the other way. It really doesn't matter. So here we're going to give Tifa plus 3k for the attack, and ultimately just nothing else we can do. Attacks the Argith dies just the same. So now we're going to be going into game 3. Again, certainly more of that push and pull that the Mono Ice deck wants to be playing, and those are the types of games where having that discard effect and having those early plays where you can hit a summoner or the 1-cost backup as well can certainly help you pull very far ahead from your opponent. So here we're just going to be starting off with a selfie backups, your casual normal 2-drop. And our opponent has, can't tell if it's a backup, looks like our opponent's hand is a little bit stuck. So the Devout here is nice. Hitting the Renoa to discard is not that great. I probably would have discarded a Laguna or something else there. Renoa is really key in this matchup, and Devout, you can always just bring back Vayne with it if you need it, but Vayne is usually one of the very first cards that I'm pitching when I'm playing Devout. Because again, unless they have like an Emperor's End or something, you really don't care about Vayne. It's just a nice insurance policy to have in the deck when you're playing a best-of-1 game. So here again, unfortunately, we start with the 4-cost Vincent, which, again, it's just not a good card to see this early. It's really more of a mid to late game card where you can get the most out of death penalty, and having to discard 2 cards here to play it certainly doesn't feel great. It just allows us to open up to being attacked by our opponent's discard-based effects. So here he's going to play something for 3, trying to determine between the Duke or the Zidane. Looks like he's just going to play the Duke instead and pass. So he's going to take a point of damage here, but really not that worried about it. And our hand doesn't have a lot of great backups, but we want to keep the Raban, and this was a huge monumental play mistake by me. I'm used to playing with decks that can get Shantoto back. Shantoto is one of your outs to your opponent having a Sephiroth that's stalling you, or Renoa, because it removes it from the game. So if you're playing this matchup, don't ever discard the Shantoto. It is your key to victory against the discard-based decks. So here our opponent gets to play a Sarah, make us discard 1 card, then he plays the Zan, trying to see if he's going to draw or make us discard. He decides to attack our hand a bit more, and then we're left with just the 1 card. So here we attack, he hits the Mateus, and this is when we finally realize it in playing the game that it doesn't, or the wording on Mateus, so it's unfortunate that we missed it in game 2, but catch it during this game where I get to finally read a card. So here we're going to hit Jesse, and that's when I finally realized that, oh, this has a different wording on it than break. It is just put. So that's me finally putting it in the break zone where it belongs, and I'm trying to decide what I get. Again, with only one card in our hand left, and not having anything really great that we can grab in this position. If our opponent drops a Sephiroth in the next turn, it's just game over for us. So I could get a Rosso here, but it doesn't really do us anything. Do us any favors by playing it. So our hope to have a Cloud is because it's a Brave attacker is that if we can live with it in our hand for another turn, our opponent would have to play 2 discard effects. That we can then have an AK Brave attacker, which can hopefully stall off our opponent for a few turns. Again, understanding that both of his characters are 7k or less currently, or are both 7k because he has the Duke. So here we're going to take a couple points of damage, and this is the moment where I lost the game, where I saw the other Shantoto go. So at this point, my opponent knows that he can just go all out and flood the board because there's no worry from what I might have. So here we drop 2, play the Cloud, but again, he can just party attack if he really wants to, or if he makes us try to think that he might have something. This is the part where he really starts to pull ahead. Trying to figure out if he has anything in his 4-drops in his discard, but really he has a Renoa and Squall, so at this point I would just discard 2 cards, get those both in play, and really outpace your opponent. So decides to get Laguna down, attack for 3 points of damage. I just choose not to do Seraphy because it can't get back a character, it only gets back a forward. And it really, at this point, we had just, game is over. And then Renoa will finish it off. Again, Renoa is just such a great card here because you get to flood the board, no Shantoto, it's just going to be able to threaten lethal every turn until you win. And we did not draw anything relevant. A Bahamut would have helped here, but again, hitting it into our break zone, I think we saw one early, definitely didn't do us any favors. So Bahamut and Shantoto were really our only outs. We foolishly discard them, and that's the end of that. So at this point, our really only last hope is a Rosso to kind of dull out the Renoa blocks, but again, it's not looking too great for us when your opponent has 5 on the board already. So here we're going to have Belias, have at least a battle trick up our sleeves. Really should have just attacked with Renoa first. We have to eat that point of damage, and ultimately our opponent is just going to have this game over in a couple turns. Here we catch that, have to make sure that there's the same element to party attack with. So again, in this case, it really doesn't matter which 2 that he party attacks with. Obviously, shouldn't have party attacked with Renoa there, because you want to break her so your opponent can't block anything else. But ultimately, just going to win on the next turn anyways with the Renoa. So thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe for future Final Fantasy trading card game content. Drop us a like, comment down below what decks you want to see next. So thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you on the next 6 Sages Gaming Duel series. This video made possible by the patron support of viewers such as yourself. Thank you to our honorary sages.